All right, ESPN is out with its way too early top 25 for the college football season next season, 2025. And Mark Schlabach, old guy, old buddy, Mark Schlabach, has got Ohio State at number one, the Texas Longhorns at number two, Penn State at three, with Notre Dame at four, and then the Georgia Bulldogs at five. I, that's not what the betting markets have. Our friends over at BetMGM have got Ohio State at one, and Georgia and Texas at two and three, with Oregon, who Mark has as the six. He has them as the buddy. Our friends over at BetMGM have got those as the top four betting, which is what I would probably agree with. I do not at all agree with Notre Dame being four. They're losing a fair amount of players. They will go get more guys, but my view is that Notre Dame had a magical run, and they have a particularly difficult schedule next year for them. It wouldn't be overwhelmingly difficult for Georgia because Georgia already plays a lot of these teams, but like they play Texas A&M, they play Arkansas, they play Boise State, they play Texas, if I'm not mistaken. So they will play. Notre Dame plays three. Let me make sure I'm not getting this wrong. They play three SEC schools right off the bat. Well, not right off the bat, but they also have SC as usual on their schedule. So this is a pretty challenging game for. I misspoke a second ago. I'm sorry. I apologize. It was not Texas. It's Miami. They play Miami on the road against Carson Beck week one, week off. Then they go to A&M. They host A&M. They go to Arkansas 2 weeks after that. They host Boise the week after that. They host SC the week after that. And then they play their usual clown schedule, which includes Navy, NC State, Syracuse, at Pittsburgh, and at Boston College. We don't know when those dates are yet. So, Notre Dame, great season. We'll see if that continues. I would not put them as high as Mark's got them, but that's okay. Whatever. Let me go through the rest of this. So Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame as the 4, Georgia at the 5. Here's what he had to say about the Dogs. I don't think that Mark is necessarily wrong here. He said the Bulldogs seem a bit disjointed throughout much of the 2024 season, but they still won the SEC championship and reached the college football playoff for the fourth in the last 8 seasons. Gunnar Stockton played well in his first start, a 23-10 loss to Notre Dame in the quarterfinals. He will go into the offseason as the front runner to replace Beck, who left for Miami. Georgia has to do a better job of blocking up front, catching the football, and tackling on defense. I would say blocking up front would be the biggest thing to me. It's time for Kirby Smart to get back to the basics. The Bulldogs added a former Texas A&M receiver Noah Thomas and SC kickoff and receiver Zachariah Branch from the portal. Safeties Jaden Harris and Adrian Maddox from Miami and UAB were important pickups, with Malachi Starks and Dan Jackson leaving. Georgia's schedule won't be quite as hard as it was in 2024, but the team still plays Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas at home, and Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, and Georgia Tech on the road. Let me just say real quick about a caveat, a very important nuance here. The Tech game is in Atlanta. That is not a road game. That is a neutral game / home game for Georgia. So just as an aside, they're playing that game at the Dome. That is not at Mark Richt Field. Okay, that is not at Mark Richt Field. It is going to Tennessee and going to Auburn. You're not going to hear me, stop saying this. Those are going to be challenging matchups for Georgia just because they're on the road. Oregon at the 6. 7 is Clemson. Clemson folks think this is going to be one of their better teams that they've had in a while. So we'll see how that goes. They open with LSU in Death Valley, the Battle of the Death Valleys, week 1. So LSU's got some momentum. We'll just see. LSU's not been so hot at season openers. LSU is the 8, BYU the 9. BYU had a great year, 11-2. South Carolina Gamecocks at number 10, which is, we'll see. Iowa State at 11, Alabama at 12. If you had Alabama behind Iowa State lately, Illinois is your 13. You got Arizona State at 14 without Cam Scadaboo. I said that wrong, I think. Arizona State is at the 14, 15 SMU, Kansas State at 16, Indiana at 17, the Gators at 18, Tennessee at 19. So Tennessee is one of the teams that a lot of folks feel like is going to slide a little bit. Let's just see what happens. A lot of change for Tennessee. Really good defensive players are not going to be back. Dylan Sampson, the best running back in the league this past year, he's going to be on it. Cooper Mays, who has been around the block for a while, he's finally gone. So Tennessee checks in at 19, Louisville at 20, Michigan, the men of Michigan, Ohio State's worst nightmare is at 21, Texas A&M at 22, Carson Beck's Miami Hurricanes at 23, Boise at 24, and then the Rebels, who are also allegedly going to take a step back, they are at 25. A lot of people had Ole Miss as their sort of team to watch coming into this thing. Coming into 24, not as much this season. So you can see for Georgia, this is not at all, this is not at all the same situation as has been the case in a season ago. In 2024, you went to Austin, you went to Tuscaloosa, you went to Oxford, all teams that came into the season as top 10 teams. Okay, if you were to go and see the rankings coming into this season, I'll put them on the screen here. All right, week 1, well, preseason. Let's just call it preseason. Here are the teams that Georgia played in the preseason. Okay, preseason number 1 were the Dogs. They played at number 4 Texas. They played at number 5 Alabama. They played at number 6 Ole Miss. They wound up playing number 14 Clemson. They played number 15 Tennessee. These are all the teams that they played in the regular season. They played that many teams in their regular season games. I mean, that's astonishing. That is astonishing. Now, in the final rankings, Georgia was ranked 6th. Oops. Now, what happened there? They were ranked 6th in the final poll, if I'm not mistaken. Well, we don't have the final poll. That's too bad. But a slew of matchups still, nonetheless. Obviously, adding the game with Notre Dame at the end of it. So Georgia had quite a challenging schedule, but that's what this is going to be from now on. I mean, like that's what this is. It's not surprising. Ohio State next year, they play Texas to open the season. Okay, so that's a heck of an opener for both teams, and It is what it is. It is what it is. It's a challenging situation now for Ohio State. After that's not much. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I mean, they go to Washington. Minnesota, Illinois is okay. Illinois could beat them. I doubt it will happen. But they got a back-to-back with Illinois and Wisconsin. And then, of course, they'll beat Penn State because they basically always do. They play Purdue on the road, which is trash. UCLA at home, Rutgers at home, and then they go to Michigan. It's a very manageable schedule for Ohio State. Very manageable. I mean, even if they lose to Texas, they could wind up the regular season ranked number 1. I mean, there's just not a lot in their way. You compare that schedule with what Texas has got. Texas plays at Ohio State. They play at Florida. They play at Georgia. I mean, that is not a lot of fun. They play at Kentucky too, but they play. I mean, like, that's just, that's a lot. That's a lot. This home schedule for Texas is not so hot. That's for sure. But they're going to open at Ohio State. Whoever wins that game will be number 1 after that game. Okay. Then they play San Jose State. UTEP, they're off, and they play Sam Houston. Then they go to the Swamp. They play the Red River rivalry, and then they go to Commonwealth Stadium. That is a tough stretch right there. That is a tough stretch. I'm just going to tell you right now. Kentucky might suck, but that's a tough stretch. They go to State. They host Vanderbilt. Week off before they go to Georgia, which will be challenging. This end of the season for Texas is really challenging. They play at Georgia, they host Arkansas, and then they host A&M. They could lose 2 of those games. For sure. I don't think they lose 3. They could win all 3, but it's going to be a lot. But it was a great season for, the Big Ten. They had 5 teams in the final rankings of the AP, which is 2 fewer than, the SEC. And, it is what it is. And I don't know. you look at this thing, you get so used to Alabama being a really good team. They wound up 17th. So just a disappointing year period for Alabama. And I'm not shocked that Georgia went at 6th. They're better than Penn State, but that's okay. Whatever. This is the worst. This is the worst final ranking for Georgia since the 2020 season when they beat Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl. And it kind of just is what it is. And when as you go into, I think the difference for the Dogs is in the final rankings here, they play Texas, Tennessee, they play Ole Miss, who is 11, they play Alabama, and that's it. That's who they play. Whereas last year, as I said, at the beginning of this year, you come into this thing and you're like, wow. I mean, that's a brutal schedule. Just a straight up brutal schedule. I do find it curious that Boise finished ranked 8th and Arizona ranked 7th. I mean, Arizona State, excuse me. Like, I don't know. After a while, it's just kind of, you don't know what to say about some of this stuff. It means Georgia ended the season with 3 wins over top 10 teams. It's going to be it will be a challenging season next year, but it will not be as challenging as this season. South Carolina at 19th, but Alabama at 17th. It's hard to get used to seeing that, but it's the new reality. It's where we're at. Bama is going to be ranked somewhere in there to start next season. I mean, this is not going to be a great Alabama team. They're going to be probably fine, but they won't be great. And Georgia gets to host rather than go over there. May make all the difference in the world. I like the way this season sets up for the Dogs. I like the way it sets up for Ohio State too, by the way. Notre Dame's more challenging situation. Oregon at 3. Texas at 4. I mean, I guess Texas is at 4 because they beat Arizona State. That's basically what we're going on here. They beat Clemson and Arizona State. They barely beat Arizona State. Georgia beat Texas twice. Anyway, you get my point. Thanks for watching.